Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. And in this one, I wanted to go over my rankings of the ranged DPS specializations when it comes to solo random battlegrounds, not rated battlegrounds, not pre-made groups, not class stacking, just specifically if you're the average player and you just like doing random battlegrounds and chilling, what specializations are going to be very powerful for you in that given situation? As I feel like that's probably the majority of WoW players or WoW PvPers. So I feel like this tier list is very relevant. There's going to be a couple of categories that we're going to go over for each specialization to take into consideration before I give them a ranking. So in random battlegrounds, there are certain situations that you need to be powerful in. So overall damage is one, so your ability to do a lot of damage on the scoreboard. So that's going to be relevant to the ranking of the specialization. Your ability to one-on-one, so occasionally you're going to run across another class. What is your chances of winning in a one-on-one? How powerful is your spec in a one-on-one situation? That's going to be very important. Another one is objective power, and this is probably one that you weren't thinking of when you're thinking about random battlegrounds, and this could be simple as carrying a flag, defending a base. What is your nest potential? So can you set up a little area where you can kite and avoid damage while killing everybody else and kind of nest yourself in a little area, kind of like setting a trap? I think that's important to consider when you're taking into account random battlegrounds. And another one is escape. So your ability to get away when things aren't going your way. And those are like the main contention points for whether or not I think a specialization is going to do very well in a solo random battleground setting. So let's get started. We got Affliction Warlock. So right off the bat, this is one that you are going to do a lot of damage. It's flat out very simple to just dot multiple targets, sit in the back line, and skyrocket your damage very high. Affliction one-on-one with Drain Life builds, Mortal Coil, this ability to lock down a target and then try and burst them down is powerful when you have things like Unending Resolve. However, when you get overwhelmed or don't have Unending Resolve to cast spells, you may find it difficult. And that's where its escape becomes a little bit weaker in terms of if you're out in midfield doing battle and you lay a portal down, it's not that much of a guaranteed success to be able to get away. But Affliction Warlock is good at objective control. So things like defending a base because it has a pet, utilizing the pet. If you're crowd controlled and somebody else is trying to take the objective, the pet can attack the target for you and hold the objective. And I also think it has really good nesting potential. So on certain bases or in the Warsong Gulch flag room, setting your portal on the top and then jumping down to the main combat room area with the flag allows you a lot of cool plays that you can make and escape when you're nested in. But the one thing that holds it back is, like I said, that midfield kind of, if you get zerged down, you're going to have a harder time. So I would recommend nesting yourself, being like a flag room defender, an objective defender, setting your port and your demonic gateway in ways where you can utilize Z-axis and have escape mechanisms. And if you do that, you are going to be very powerful. But because it's overall not able to do that in all situations, I think it falls just a little bit short, not by much. I think its one-on-one potential could struggle a bit too with things like marksmanship hunters and subtlety rogues just kind of KOing you. So I think it holds you back from going onto an S tier, but you are definitely a top tier solo random battleground specialization when it comes to Shadowlands at the moment. Now, Arcane Mage, this is one that I wanted to put very high originally. You can do a lot of scoreboard damage, but it's not going to be as easy to do as any of these damage over time classes like Balanced Druid or Affliction Warlock. But you can get a lot of big burst, and your one-on-one potential is absolutely insane. That's where you're going to really excel with Temporal Shield and Alter Time. You have multiple ways to reset your health bar, and if in any case a one-on-one is not going your way, you just start spamming Resonance Arcane Barrage, slowing the target, and you can escape any situation. You have multiple invisibilities to be able to escape as well, or to engage on a base for objective control. The one downside is you don't have a pet, so being a base defender will be more difficult, but you do have things like Ice Block to be able to remove crowd control as a secondary crowd control remover, which does compensate a bit. but I wouldn't say it is as strong objective-wise as a pet class would be specifically. I think Arcane is carried mostly by its one-on-one potential, the ability to use, so if we're talking about nesting, being able to use alter time at the top level of a platform, jump off, and then alter time back up is a really big play you can make in a Battleground that will save you, and it's a really good defense nesting mechanism. If you wanted to be a flag carrier as an Arcane Mage in solo random Battlegrounds, rated again, I probably wouldn't recommend that, but you're going to be able to carry the flag as an Arcane Mage with your mobility and with all of your defensives that can be utilized while holding the flag. And this nesting potential, your one-on-one being absolutely out of this world, the ability to top the meter, but I think it's held back because it's not able to do as much damage on the scoreboard as other specializations. It can do a lot of bursts. You're going to win every one-on-one, so it's still a very solid specialization in my book, but I think there's a little bit something holding it back from being an S tier quality of the highest caliber for solo random Battlegrounds, but it's still a solid pick. Beastmaster Hunter. This is one where you're probably not going to top the meter unless everybody else in your group is really undergeared or also playing specs that aren't very good at topping the meter. Your one-on-one potential is decent. It's definitely not bad. If you are good at Beastmaster Hunter and have gear, you're going to win a fair amount of your one-on-ones. You have things like camouflage. This is to sneak around the map and be able to avoid combat, feign death to remove dots, and then go into camouflage for a reset. So you do have high escape mechanisms. You've got good objective defense, probably one of the best base defenders in the game with so many pets. You can just throw at the target and run away while the pets hold the flag. So definitely objective defense is going to be a strength for this specialization. But when it just comes down to clap in the middle where you're just headbutting the other team, Beastmaster is going to fall really far behind all the other specializations. So if you are going to play this spec, and if I'm taking into account all of those situations together, I think that it's lacking there is going to hold it back a lot in its potential. Not that you can't have fun with it in random Battlegrounds. And again, the purpose of the tier list is try and give you an idea of what you should look to do with these specs too. Not only just, this is a bad spec, this is a good spec. It's like, well, this is a bad spec in these situations, but if you want to play it, these situations are what you should try to look for. So if I were to play Beastmaster Hunter, I would always be looking for base defense, maybe flag carrier defense, and defense oriented, not midfield fights. Try and get one-on-ones if a fight isn't going my way. Feign death, disengage, camouflage. Just try and get away from engagements that aren't beneficial to me and pick my fights because the damage is not going to be there comparatively to things like Affliction Lock or Arcane Mage. So for me, I think it falls a bit short in that regard, even though its one-on-one potential is good. I want to put it, if you're somebody who values objective play in a solo random Battlegrounds and you're not like me who just wants to fight on the road and top the damage meter, then you probably are going to give it more value than I'm about to do. But I think it falls a little bit short for a solo random Battleground spec. Your ability to carry a game into account. You don't really have super good nesting potential. It's mostly just escape. You've got a lot of escape and good one-on-one and good objective defense, but everything else is going to be falling short of the other specializations. Balanced Druid. Now, this is one that has great escapes, being able to shapeshift out of slows whenever you need to, multiple sprints, stealth, the ability to heal itself, Heart of the Wild to beef up its bear form, so you're probably the best flag carrier in the game as a solo player in a random Battleground. Great objective defense because you have stealth, so you can stay at a base in stealth. You've got things like Wild Charge to do that Z-axis jumping like the Affliction Warlocks. You're going to top the damage meter very easily by just dotting multiple targets, and your one-on-one is going to be very good with things like Thorns against melee DPS, jumping into bear form, and then lobbing out a couple Star Surges. I think without a doubt, it's kind of a no-brainer that Moonkin is S tier. And I'm not trying to be personally biased because I'm playing Moonkin. I think it is, as a solo random Battleground spec, it's carry potential, everything that you need to do in a Battleground you can do and you excel at. So I think it's pretty obvious for Balanced Druid to go up here onto the S tier when it comes to solo random Battlegrounds. But moving forward, we've got Demonology Warlock. This is another pet class, so again, objective, if you're defending a base, is going to do well. But I think competing with an Affliction Warlock or a Destruction Warlock in overall scoreboard damage is going to be tougher, especially if you're getting zerged down and interrupted multiple times. Your access to instant damage is going to be much lower, and you're much more of a ramp burst. You're kind of just like a little bit more of an immobile Arcane Mage in that sense. it's, I would say, harder than Beast Mastery because you don't have the escape mechanisms like camouflage or stealth. So if you're just sitting at a base, I'm a bit worried about it. However, I have seen Demonologies doing pretty well in one-on-one recently, so I think their one-on-one is good. But your ability to get overall scoreboard damage is going to be much more difficult than Affliction and Destruction. Your escape mechanisms are much weaker than something like Balanced Druid or even Beastmaster Hunter, so I think that holds it back a little bit. But your scoreboard damage is going to be higher than a Beastmaster Hunter for sure, so probably evens it out. I think I feel comfortable putting it on about the same place as a Beastmaster Hunter, and it's kind of the similar thing. You want to be setting up your locations to fight as a Warlock in general, so you've got your Demonic Circle and your Gateway in positions that you can easily escape. Bringing them out into midfield and trying to utilize them against the plethora of mobility that melee DPS have is probably not going to be too great, and because you're a caster, and if you don't have that nest set up, it would be hard to really cast or have that much fun. It doesn't have an insane amount of instant burst damage either. It's a lot of ramp, so I think it holds it back comparatively to that of something like a Balancer that's on the S tier. So I think I feel comfortable putting it on C here. Destruction Warlock, this is a spec that I think people are sleeping on a bit because it hasn't gone anywhere. It's still insanely good. Your scoreboard damage is going to be very high. Your burst damage is going to be insanely high. You're just going to KO people with Chaos Bolts. You have multiple schools of magic, so if you're being tunneled down, you'll be able to just get damage out no matter what. You've got the same mobility tools as Affliction and Demonology in terms of your Gateway and your Demonic Circle, but your midfield fight potential is massive. Like, you're going to be a really key player whenever you're going to a team fight engagement as a Destruction Warlock. So if you really just want to get into the fight and into the fray, that's where Destruction is going to definitely excel. You are able to one-on-one as well with things like Unending Resolve, same kind of defense as Affliction, Mortal Coil. You're going to burst people down very quickly and scare them off. Perhaps its survivability is a little bit lower because you're not going to have Drain Life ticking away, but you have other things like Soul Leech, healing and absorbing yourself. I feel like Destruction, it's not going to be great as an objective. You can get a pet and defend bases with a pet if you need to, but it's not Balanced Druid, right? I don't think we can say it's Balanced Druid. Your ability to move around the map, you're not going to be a flag carrier. I think it falls a little bit short, but it's still a really good Battleground spec at the moment if you're worried about it underperforming or something, or maybe you watched a bunch of old vanilla PvP videos and you're just having some throwback days to the Destruction Warlock days. I think it's still in that position. It's still really good, but I wouldn't say it's as good as something like a Balanced Druid at the moment. Elemental Shaman. This is another specialization that has multiple schools of magic, like Destruction Warlock. You can kind of just sit in the back and blast people. You're going to get probably outdamaged by most of the specializations in the S tier and the A tier category on equivalent skill, equivalent gear in the team fight specifically. But you bring things like knockbacks, like Thunderstorm. So if you take your fights at things like Lumbermill and Arathi Basin, or the Middle Flag and Eye of the Storm, or on your bridges, you can have a lot of fun with the knockback, which I didn't mention for Balanced Druid either, which also has a knockback. Elemental Shaman is going to excel in those positions for solo random battlegrounds. So if you really like just knocking people off of high platforms and sending them flying, then that's going to be where you really are a key player. You still have a lot of disruption with things like Grounding Totem to redirect a lot of spells to, and Wind Shear to interrupt. Things like Lightning Lasso, Lava Burst, and Stormkeeper doing a lot of your damage. And because you have multiple schools of magic, you're not going to be too frustrated when you're casting in teamfight engagements because, oh, I got kicked on Stormkeeper, I'm just Lava Bursting. I got kicked on Lava Burst, I'm Stormkeepering. So you're not going to be too frustrated there. It has all right one-on-one potential with Ghost Wolf and Frost Shock and Lightning Lasso to try and run away and retreat, and you can run some healing conduits to increase your healing output. I think that its one-on-one potential is okay. You're going to struggle with things like rogues rushing you down in stuns, Ret Paladins rushing you down in stuns, but if you can keep them away and prevent them from getting to you in the first place, then you'll be able to take them on. Not a great base defender. You have things like Earth Elemental and Fire Elemental to throw down to try and hold the base if you get crowd controlled, but you only have one way to get out of crowd control. So if you don't have a Glider's Medallion and you get blinded or sapped, that base is gone. So I feel like its objective control is weaker. Its strengths come in blasting targets away with a moderate level of one-on-one. I feel like Elemental Shaman is a solo random battleground player. Is it as good as Affliction and Destruction? Think so. I don't think it's as good as Balance though as a solo player, so it's going to fall a little bit short. Still solid. All in all, still a good spec, but you may not want to focus on defense. You may want to focus on staying with the group in your solo random battleground experience and knocking people away from the fight. Fire Mage, this is one that I probably would have put on S tier last expansion when Greater Pyro was spammable, but Greater Pyroblast is no longer spammable. You no longer have Temporal Shield. You've lost a lot of personal defense there. I think Fire Mage as a solo player, like, it's dropped off a lot. Your one-on-one's going to be pretty good when you have Combustion up. You can burn down a target really fast, or maybe a bunch of targets if they're close by. But then after that, you're kind of just, you don't have Greater Pyro to spam, so you're just a wet noodle, kind of just sitting around waiting, resetting your Combustion. Your one-on-one, it's okay. It's definitely not as good as Arcane. Arcane is going to be the best mage one-on-one spec. Your ability to top the damage meter, I also think, is going to be not as high as something like Affliction or Destruction or Elemental. So I think it holds it back from being an A-tier specialization. You still have things like Polymorph, but in random battlegrounds, people are going to break it. Polymorph would be more or less if you're one-on-oneing somebody and you sheep them and then you needed to run away to a different base, you'd be able to utilize it in that sense. But I feel like without spammable Greater Pyro, Fire Mage as a solo random battleground spec falls to about a B tier at the moment. I wouldn't say that it's as powerful as the other four currently on A tier. Frost Mage, similar to the Fire Mage, however, you do bring a lot of control. So dropping Blizzard and Frozen Orb on a bunch of melee and just sitting in the back is going to be a lot of fun. And you may be able to top the damage meter by utilizing a bunch of AoE talents, splitting ice. You're going to be able to one-on-one a lot of melee DPS just because of these powerful slows and these snares. But you lost Temporal as well, as Fire Mage has lost it. So I think it pulls you back a bit. I don't think Frost Mage is as strong as when I remember it back in Cataclysm, for example, as a solo random battleground player where you shatter comboed somebody in a deep freeze. And mostly just the lack of deep freeze is going to limit your potential in one-on-ones for sure. You do have Water Elemental, though, for base defense, so your objective play is going to be high. I think you will struggle to keep up with things like Affliction, Arcane, or maybe not Arcane, but your one-on-one is weaker than Arcane. You'll struggle to keep up with Destruction, Elemental, and Balance and Damage, so I think it prevents you overall. But the objective power with your Water Elemental, I think Fire and Frost probably about the same, just slightly. Maybe, okay, so we need to organize this. Left is the most powerful on this tier, and then on the right is the weakest on this current tier. So Frost is close to getting into A. Fire is further away from getting into A. BM is closer to B than Demonology is. And then maybe we need to reorganize this one as well. So I think Affliction is probably pretty close. Destruction is probably slightly better than Arcane. And then these ones are very close. So it'll go like that in terms of best to worst, taking into those four major components. Marksmanship Hunter, I mean, this is one that you can't just throw away the fact that it will erase you from stealth and camouflage immediately. So your ability to just absolutely nuke someone out of the game is insane. That definitely is true. You have the same mechanisms as Beast Mastery to be able to disengage Feign Death off dots with honor talents, and then camouflage to heal yourself and escape when you need to. If you have to, you can pull out a pet for objective defense. You are going to do an insane amount of damage on the scoreboard on the spec right now. Marksman is a hard carry when it comes to this. You're going to be weak. You're not going to flag carry. I don't see a Marksman Hunter flag carrying like something like a Balance Druid can. But I feel like its damage output is so high right now that it evens out for not being able to be a flag carrier. And you might not even get a flag carry map anyway. So it's like, what, two maps out of the entire thing where that's going to happen. I feel like Marksman, it's got to be an S tier at the moment with how powerful it is. And finally, Shadow Priest. Similarly to Balance Druid, you're going to be able to get damage over time effects out. You have multiple immunities and mobility through Dispersion and Greater Fade, which is going to let you take on a lot of one-on-ones. You've got Stun and Silence on instant cast, a bunch of new talents that make your dots instant cast as well, so you can deal with all the interrupts way easier than in the past. As far as objective and team play, you may not be the flag carrier, though you could if you ran a legendary that turned your Leap of Faith into a jump, so you could jump to allies like the Wild Charge for the Balance Druid. Probably not going to do it, but it is an option if you really wanted to have some fun in random battlegrounds. But you could just use Life Grip to pull the flag carrier into better spots on the map. The ability to just top the damage, amazing one-on-one, practically immortal in a lot of cases as a Shadow Priest right now, just about as insane as Marksmanship Hunter. I'd say it's better than Marksmanship Hunter as a solo random battleground spec, so Boomkin being the best, Shadow being the second best, Marksman being the third best in the S tier right now for ranged DPS for random battlegrounds, and we basically got it. Balanced Best, Shadow, Marks, Affliction, Destro, Arcane, Ellie, Frost, Fire, BM, Demo. I should turn this into a Pokemon rap intro. We got the list here. This is my current thoughts on specializations for a solo random Battleground player, because that's what a lot of us are doing at the moment in Shadowlands. I thought that this would be relevant information for those looking to pick a specialization to focus on this type of content. I hope that this video was helpful to you. If it was, please leave it with a thumbs up. And consider subscribing to the channel, because I upload very frequently. And if you want to see this type of information and updates to the game in real time, I'm always looking to see when the updates are coming out and then give you my opinion on what's going to happen in terms of the meta. And so far, I've been pretty close to accurate with my estimations and my tier list so far. So I'm going to do my best to keep it up. I'm always gathering information from the community as well to make sure the information is relevant and accurate, and not just only my personal bias. But other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. Check me out on twitch.tv/Supatease. Check me out on twitter.com/Supatease. Check me out on instagram.com/Supacasting. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.